All right, so we're going to talk Miami Dolphins, and we felt this was a good opportunity to do this sort of like a standalone since they are not theoretically in the top 31 or 32, whichever way you want to look at it, because they didn't trade the pick, but they got the pick taken away. So, anyway, uh, this is an opportunity to still go into what's happening with the Miami Dolphins, including the fact that they just made a hire with Vic Fangio. So, as the new defensive coordinator, now that is a great move. He is one of the elite defensive minds in the game. It just makes that division more tougher, like if it hasn't already been tough the last year or so. What does that do with their scheme and the players that they have and the outlook going into the draft and free agency? Do you think it's going to change much, Dave?
Not much. I don't think they're going to need. Sometimes you get a defensive coordinator hire, and you really have to turn the personnel upside down. With the front that Fangio runs, I believe what they have, especially with the two edge guys, Chubb and Phillips, and Chubb's got that relationship with Fangio already. I'm sure that was part of the discussion. I think they're set up personnel-wise pretty well. We can get into some of the team needs at some point, but I don't think Fangio, his hire, hasn't really shifted the goalposts with what this team needs much at all.
All right. Well, let's take a look at, of course, their major need, or at least the one position they've got to figure out, is on offense with Tua. Because not only do they have to figure out health-wise what's going on with Tua, but his contract is due. So this is just a big mystery. Now the question is going to be, do they feel that Skylar Thompson would be like, because we've talked on this show repeatedly on other teams about, well, should they bring in a middle round draft pick, as a guy that could be maybe a future quarterback, future starter. And if it doesn't work out, then maybe he's a backup. But the Dolphins already seem to have that with Skylar Thompson now. So they've got that kind of middle round talent, even though he was a last pick in the draft type of guy, like Brock Purdy almost. But that's the way I think they have to look at it, right? And that means that maybe you just go into free agency and add another veteran. But if they don't, by the time they come to the draft, if they haven't re-signed Bridgewater and it's just Thompson and Tua, I wonder whether or not they are serious about potentially adding another quarterback early in the draft, considering, again, they do not have a first rounder.
Right. I mean, when I say that there might be a dozen teams in the NFL looking for a new quarterback, at the peak, right? There's a few situations around the league that need to be figured out. Miami's on that list. Obviously, Tua will be there if he's healthy next year. But there's two questions you have with him now that are very serious. One, the contract you brought up. Do they want to bring him back? What is that going to be worth? And then two, the concussions. I think we've already forgotten how bad that concussion was at Cincinnati. And he has another one at the end of the year. There were some doctors saying that his career might have been over after that first one. And then he suffers another one. And that's where it's if you know anything about concussions, it's easier to get them the more you get. And I'm not in the medical background. I have nothing there of credibility, but there's a cloud over this team right now. You want to be optimistic because of what they did to turn this thing around. I think there's good talent on both sides of the ball.
Yes.
But there's a cloud that's not going away until we get a little bit more clarity on that situation. So the Skylar Thompson, I saw him early in the year, saw him late in the year, scouted him a lot at Kansas State. He's not the answer.
No, he's not. He's not a franchise quarterback. No.
This is not Brock Purdy. So what do you do with the draft? I don't think you bring in another young guy unless you get confirmation that Tua is done. If there's a move that they make, it's going to be a veteran that comes in. One of these guys that might have even had a starting gig last year, a Baker Mayfield type, if he did want to leave.
Well, don't you think you're going to get the obvious connections with Jimmy G?
Right.
So
I mean,
and he might fit really well there, but he's another injury-prone guy.
Right. I mean, that's why I don't like Bridgewater. He's been, as durable as a piece of paper since his career started. And, I think that any quarterback should be lining up to play for this guy. No matter who you are, he's going to get the most production out of you and increase your market value. I'll love a 1-year deal here for Jimmy G. I don't know if he'll take a 1-year deal, but if Miami does want him for that, to while they kind of get their feet underneath them and figure out what their long-term approach is, That's a great move. I think it'd be a great move for Baker Mayfield as well. I think he fits in well with what McDaniel likes to do in that offense. And that's just the start. But if I'm working for that organization right now, you are going over every single option.
Yeah, the Baker Mayfield thing is going to be tricky. I mean, I know the Rams, we talked about them, of course, already, and the situation with Baker. And I know that the money is just not there, but come on, Baker's got enough money right now that he can, you would think that working for Sean McVay, even for just a year or two, and then by who knows? I mean, you can't tell me that he can't believe that Matthew Stafford's going to stay upright. And if he does, and even if he does, all right, well, fine. You're still young. By the time Stafford leaves, you've now got 2 or 3 years of development on the Sean McVay, and then in 1 year you'll be a $30 million quarterback if all goes well.
Right.
I just think it makes too much sense for them to stick there, but they're not us, and that's what we've talked about. And if he wants to go to Miami and take the chance, and maybe this is one of the spots that it could work out.
Right. So yeah, I mean, if you're advising him, like Greg, if you were advising Baker and say like, hey, they both want you, the Rams and the Dolphins, right? We have to pick one. You're guaranteed, and this is assuming Tua can't play. I think that's the only reason why you bring a guy like Baker in. If you get confirmation that he's going to play, this situation is off the board. But let's say you get confirmation Tua's out for next year, maybe his entire career, right? Everything's on the table right now. I would advise the quarterback to say, if there's a starting job for you in a good offensive system, good offensive situation, if it's available in front of you right now, even if it's for 1 year, I take that job, because there's just nothing guaranteed next year, or who knows, Stafford might play another 3 years. And in the NFL, that's a long time. Baker Mayfield may be a non-factor in 3 years, right? And if there's a starting job to play under this offensive mind with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, a pretty good offensive line, that would be a tough for me to advise against. Yeah.
And again, that's why I'm saying that it would have to be the right spot, and maybe
Correct.
This would be that one spot. I don't think Baker could just be, or I'll go anywhere. Who wants to pay me the most, and maybe I get a starting job anywhere. No, you can't do that. Don't do that, because if he does that, and if he has that ego, and I don't know if he does, but if he has that, it could ruin his career.
Yep, it can ruin his career. You're absolutely right.
All right, so that's the big question for the Miami Dolphins, is what to do at the quarterback position. Of course, everybody knows that. You take a look at the rest of the offense. You know what? Even offense and defensively, as good as this team is, this is one of those teams that still has a lot of work to do as far as free agency and some of their own players. They've got to extend players. Their cap situation is not very good, and they already have to think ahead. They've got to eventually, within the next year, they've got to extend Christian Wilkins. They should definitely try to extend Connor Williams, and they should extend Robert Hunt. Those are 3 extensions in the next year that they have to be thinking about on players that they need. I mean, those are guys you want back. So that's already something that they have to keep in mind. I don't know if they're bringing back Gesicki. It doesn't appear that's going to be the case, because I'm not sure the Dolphins could afford him. So if that's the case, then tight end becomes potentially a need in this particular offensive system. They definitely need an upgrade at the slot. They need to add some more slot/wide receiver depth after the big 2. I don't know if they're going to resign the running backs. Do they just go, hey, we're going to resign all of those guys on the cheap, and those are just going to be our guys, and we're going to run them with the system? Or are they going to look for a true number 1? Do they look for, not in free agency, but in the draft? And then on the offensive line, and let's just stick with the offense first, they need a left guard, because they cannot be content with what they've seen from Eichenberg so far, and they need a right tackle, because they can't be content with what they see from Austin Jackson either. So
Austin. So he's probably one of the worst first-round picks from 2020. If you look at all the first-round picks, he's got to be bottom 5 value from that. So I agree with you on the right tackle. That would be my first spot. That is the blind side of Tua. If he stays, that needs to be shored up a little bit. But I'll tell you what, for an offense that scored a lot of points and has really taken a big step, okay, they need help at running. I mean, just looking at the free agency, I can't see them signing all these guys.
Sure.
So there's going to be a mid, maybe late round draft pick, because that's that McDaniels Shanahan connection. That's what they do at running.
They can use a late round pick, and he'll work in in the system. Yep.
Right. And even the backs that they had, like Jeff Wilson and Mostert, those guys, they weren't bell cow, top tier
No.
backs, but they make it work. I agree. There's a huge drop off behind Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. The drop off is way too abrupt. There needs to be another receiver brought into that room to A, provide depth. All right. B, I don't think they're the most durable athletes in the world, both those guys, right? And you need a third. And now, I mean, you brought up Gesicki. This is an offense that they do want the tight end. But
Yes.
I don't know if Gesicki is the kind of tight end that they want. I think they want someone that's a little bit more sudden, a little bit more effective after the catch.
Who could be that guy in the second, third, or fourth rounds?
So, I mean, my first name was going to be the one that won't be there when they're on the clock is Kincaid.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. No.
From Utah, unless they made a trade up. I do think that would be a perfect match if they could somehow get their hands on him. But I'm interested in Luke Musgrave from Oregon State. He's going to be playing at the Senior Bowl next week. He missed most of last season with a knee. Has all the prototype numbers. He's got NFL lineage. His dad coached in the NFL, and he is a sneaky good athlete that weighs 255 pounds. Like when I say good athlete, straight line, agility, short areas, in a phone booth. Didn't break as many tackles as I thought he could have at Oregon State. I don't know if there's a strength or a toughness issue there, but when I just consider how quickly he catches the ball and turns upfield, he just has like a natural feel for where the defenders are after he gets the ball in his hands.
So he's that next guy in that model you're looking for at tight end after Kincaid.
Yep. That's exactly. He's that next guy. There's a name that's interesting to some. Is Tucker Kraft from South Dakota State. I haven't done my report on him yet. Small school kid, declared early too, and there's talk that he might have the best combination of physical tools. I just haven't gotten my hands on his tape yet. Okay. I probably won't get it for another month, but that's just a name to kind of keep in the back of your head. Tucker Kraft. Okay. If they want someone smaller, I call this guy the JV version of Dalton Kincaid, is Josh Wiley from Cincinnati.
Yes.
He's great speed, probably has 4.5, 4.6 credible speed, but he's also great in short areas. He's just a little short-armed. I'm not sure if he'll factor in the trenches, but I think he fits this scheme pretty well.
If they don't believe, and we'll throw Wiley into the mix, do you believe that he's capable of being a number one?
A number one threat in the passing game, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So those three guys you mentioned, we know Kincaid. So Musgrave and Wiley, you think they still have? Okay. So, and would Wiley be the guy or Musgrave? Who lasts longer? Who could possibly be like more of a third or a fourth round guy?
Wiley.
Okay.
Wiley. I think he could even be a fourth or fifth rounder, just based on the strength of the tight end class and just the slight size shortcomings. Like some teams that really want the wide tight end to be in line, put the hand on the ground, block the end. And he's a good motion blocker, which again, Miami loves to move their tight ends, right? That's why I see the fit. But he's not someone I want blocking D ends and linebackers. He'll get tossed around.
Okay. And by the way, with what they have now, Smythe has another year. Shaheen's also a free agent. And Hunter Long was a third-round pick by this GM, not this coach, but this GM picked him. So nothing there. Those guys are any of them at least serviceable number 2s and 3s?
Yeah, I think Long and Smythe are serviceable number 2s, and I think they complement a guy like Wiley pretty well. Because Wiley is the receiving type. Okay. Get him the ball. These guys can mix it up in the trenches.
All right. So, and by the way, you think another year, Eichenberg, give him another year?
I would. I would start thinking about drafting his replacement this year.
Do you like Eichenberg? Did you like him coming out? Did you think he should be a second-round pick?
Yeah. I think that's probably as high as I would see them going. Yeah.
And with Eichenberg, though, are you confident that he could turn it around?
Yeah, I do. I liked him out of college. He's been moved around the offensive line a bunch. So I think that always can impede someone's progress and just player development. He's not going to be moved anymore. I think this is going to be his make or break, this spot. And because of that, getting a full off season after some experience at that spot, I think it could help him.
And how about the fourth-round wide receiver last year they picked up?
I liked him. He was raw, though. So it's really going to come down to the development of route running and understanding the scheme and having a feel for defense, but the raw talent is there. I mean, his raw talent was day 2 caliber.
So it was always going to be a redshirt for him this past year.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yep.
On defense, now let's remember they lost Ogba to torn triceps week 10. And he's a guy that actually fits more in a 4-3. But he'll be fine. And he made the big contract too, so he's going to want to give back to after because he wasn't having a great year anyway. Byron Jones also missed the entire year, and keeping in mind also that Byron Jones has a really bad contract, and so does Cedric Wilson.
Yeah,
I mean, I think Cedric Wilson's dead money might be $7 million.
Yeah,
and Byron Jones's dead money is, I think, double digits for the next 2 years.
Yeah, he's going to be on this team for a while. They went after those Cowboys pretty hard.
So I don't know because remember, this is a negative cap team.
Yep.
So they might bite the bullet somewhere with one of these guys. But let's take a look also. We talked about on defense needing next year at some point, maybe this offseason, extending Christian Wilkins because he has just really turned into a heck of a player up front. Seiler's also a really solid player, but they need an upgrade at nose tackle. Raekwon Davis has not been the man. They need a 100%, and that's not going to be somebody that they draft early. But let's talk about that because, again, unless there's a superstar nose tackle, those can usually be picked up later in the draft. If you're looking at guys between 325 and 340, those types of nose tackles, what are we looking at? Either who's at the top of the list and who are guys that you can keep an eye on in the middle rounds?
I would say the top nose tackle for the role that you're talking about, the physical profile that you're talking about, is Ika from Baylor. Kind of has like some, I don't want to say, I would say he's closer to Danny Shelton when he kind of grew up playing. I think it was with the Pats initially, right? But he really fell off towards the back end of his career after he got hurt. So I think he's got a higher upside.
Cleveland too, I think.
Yes, Cleveland. I think that's where he started. Was Cleveland?
Yes.
Yeah. He's not Vita Vea. He's got a similar body type, just like a lot of loose meat. And he's a little quicker than you think. I think that's where some of those comparisons can come into play. But I haven't been. I think he offers nothing as a pass rusher, and I get a little nervous about drafting those guys high. I'd rather go after my run plug day 3, and in that type of role, you have PJ Mustipher from Penn State. I like Keandre Coburn from Texas. I think both those guys fit that role really well. They're going to be able to play immediately, and you can probably get them round 4, round 5.
Okay. They also got to look at some depth at the edge if they do not re-sign Ingram or Van Ginkel. So, because Phillips had a great season, and then you trade it for Chubb. So you have 2 really premier edge rushers right there.
Yeah.
And Ogba will be back next year. So you've got really 3. So it's not a major need, but depth definitely will come into play depending on if they let both of those guys go.
Yeah.
Defensive line depth as well. Inside linebacker, do they re-sign a Landon Roberts? He's been a nice piece for them, but we'll see. I mean, not only did he lead the team in tackles, but he was like 3rd on the team in sacks with 4.5.
Yeah.
So he's a big part. But they have Baker in there, and they drafted Channing Tindall. Now, Tindall kind of looked like he took a red shirt as well. Are you surprised that he didn't get on the field more?
No, I expected that. He only really started for 1 year at Georgia. That if you remember, Georgia just stacked at linebacker like year after year. So he just had a hard time getting on the field. And the one shot he did last year, he shined. And he tested athletic like so fast. I think he was the fastest linebacker out of that group. But you could see clearly on tape that he was just often getting on the wrong side of blocks, right? Like he just was a step or two too slow. So that development, you had to take time with him. But if it does click with him, he's going to immediately be elite speed for the linebackers position in the league.
Do you think it's more than likely that they let Roberts go then
I
and
do.
then just let Tindall slip into his place?
Yeah, I do. I think it makes sense both economically, and I think Tindall can offer a few more things. I mean, Roberts is like a solid, reliable player, does the right things all the time, but I think Tindall offers things that Roberts just physically cannot do.
So really, when you look at it, I'm going on defense, nose tackle, but you can do that later. But without question, and they've been trying to figure out this secondary for a while now.
Yeah.
Because they've been lucky because they have Xavier and Howard, and he's kind of mask some issues there, but they've really missed on a lot of early round DBs. Now they hit with Holland, so that was good.
Yeah.
So really, if you look at it, they have to decide what to do with Rick Rose, a free agent, so you got to keep an eye on that. Needham tore his Achilles, the slot corner, so the undrafted kid played a lot. So that was good that he got playing time. Were you surprised that he played pretty well?
Oh yeah, I mean he was the surprise of he was the best undrafted free agent in the NFL this year, and yeah, he was. I think he made second team all rookie team for the R Lads all rookie team this year. He played right away too. He was impressive. Had his typical ups and downs that any rookie corner would, but he started and ended the season very strong, and I think that's going to be his job to lose even when Needham comes back. If he comes back, I think he's a free agent as well. Needham at nickel, yes, at nickel.
Okay, and so so that kid? How do you pronounce his name?
Kader
Kohu. Okay. So anyway, so they're in good shape then, if that's the case at that spot. But they definitely need another outside corner, no question about it. Especially with the Byron Jones situation, and they probably should also, again, depending if they re-sign Eric Rowe, they probably need to decide what to do if they believe in Brandon Jones and Rowe as a combo, or they feel they have to upgrade alongside Holland as well. But cornerback is probably, would you agree, the number one need on defense?
On defense, yeah. I think corner's the one. Look, they're going to have to go there. If there's a value with that one of their first picks, I think it's a must.
Okay,
for them.
So right around where the Dolphins are picking in the second round, who's available at corner?
Deonte Banks from Maryland, Tyreek Stevenson from Miami. Those are the two guys that I feel fit their scheme the best and can also offer immediate contribution. I think those guys are NFL ready right now. Can run. Good size, physical players. I think they fit Fangio's scheme from that perspective as well. So all those tools kind of line up, and it makes sense. And I think the value is going to be right there as well.
Okay, and so before I let you go and we wrap up this Dolphins early report for the NFL draft going into free agency, what would you say? Let's just take quarterback out of the equation. Cornerback versus a number of potential issues on offense. Which is the one on offense that you think might be the biggest need?
I'm going to go tight end.
Really?
Assuming that Gesicki will not be back, because I think tight end, just knowing what they have on the outside, if they get something inside that those guys, create so much.
So you think the tight end position, because it could be the biggest difference maker for their team?
Yeah, right. Like the amount of space that Waddle and Hill create for guys underneath to catch the ball and make something happen after the catch. I mean, it's if you can get a guy in there that can catch the ball and break tackles and run away from guys, and they're agile and they're fast, it could be a huge difference maker for their offense. I mean, you can make an argument that running back is a bigger need because all these guys are free agents. Yes. But I think the system that McDaniel comes from is like, hey, we'll find one on day 3. Let's take care of the other things first.
And then we really like Kincaid. Is that everybody else really like Kincaid? Does everybody have Kincaid as the number one tight end?
The most of what I've seen out there has been Myers at number 1 from Notre Dame. I've seen Kincaid start to creep up a little bit. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe people are just catching up on his film. That could be it. So that could be it. It could be some, influence that some people have over others. But I think that Kincaid and Meyer, no matter what, they're going to be close. And I think it partially depends on what you want out of the tight end position. If you want more every down capabilities, every situation, Meyer's probably the guy. If you want a passing game weapon, which a lot of the league wants right now, I don't think Kincaid, you can't argue against him.
Okay, but do you think it's possible he could last into the second round?
I would say less than 20% chance he goes.
So by the time everybody really, because I don't know, I haven't looked at mock drafts or anything like that, but you would have you looked at any mock drafts yet?
Just one. I looked at Daniel Jeremiah's, and I don't think Kincaid was up there. I think so. Yeah, I would say 20 to 30% chance that he'll last into the top round.
So this is going to be one of those late blooming players that you may not see it right now on mock drafts in the first round, but by the time you get closer to the draft, his name is going to be in the first round more than likely.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anyway, sorry, Dolphin fans, but You may have to trade up to get him. What are you going to do?
Yep.
Great job as always, Dave. Appreciate it. That's Dolphins coverage here. We'll talk more Miami Dolphins following free agency, and then leading up until the draft. We'll do another extended post-free agency, pre-draft Dolphins report. But also keep in mind, our next show here on the channel on the RLS Football Network is going to be our mock draft show. And that is going to be, I believe, on February 6th, I think. Monday, Tuesday, 7th. Monday, Tuesday. So look out for that. We'll have a mock draft. And unfortunately, we won't be talking about the Dolphins in that one. So that's what you get when you trade and get your picks forfeited. So what are you going to do?
Yep. Get into trouble.
Thanks, Dave.
All right. Thank you.